Welcome to Global Connections on ThinkTech Hawaii. I'm your host, Jay Fidell. Today, we'll talk about Operation Midnight Hammer, the U.S. strike against Iran and its nuclear facilities. Where does the war, such as it is, go from here? Our guest for the show is Dr. Roopmati Khandekar, geopolitical analyst. Welcome to the show, Roopmati.
Hello, Ajay. Thank you for having me on your show. It's really my pleasure.
So help us understand Operation Midnight Hammer and the entry of the U.S. into the war, the apparent ceasefire, and what happens now. What is Midnight Hammer?
So, Jay, we discussed last time Operation Rising Lion versus Operation Promise 3. And this, what happened on June 22nd, was America's direct entry into this Iran Israel war. So, 125 aircraft, including B 2 stealth bombers, have been launched from the US homeland with a combined ammunition of 420,000 pounds of explosives, supported by large aerial refueling tankers and fighter jets. So, Jay, this was a very complicated operation, and I'll tell you why. Because, see, one group of B 2 bombers flew from west, from Missouri, toward an airbase in the Pacific, drawing the attention of your plane spotters, the government officials, and the media. And another set of seven B 2 bombers flew east, uh, just with minimum communication to avoid detection. So this was the deception part. And Air Force General Dan Kane said, he's chairman of Joint Chief of Staff, said that the deception was part of a plan to maintain tactical surprise element in this operation. So a Pentagon graphic has shown this route that they flew over Lebanon, Syria, and Iraq to reach Iran. And Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said that our B2s went in and out without the world knowing at all. So, Jay, America has been warning Iran about this, and hour before the bombers actually entered Iranian space, you had the U.S. submarine launch about 2 dozen Tomahawk missiles onto the uranium enrichment site in Esfahan. So then what happens, Jay? The first B2 dropped its pair of GBU 57 MOP, that is massive ordnance penetrators, on the heavily fortified Fordo enrichment facility. Yeah. So, and it was is the first use of the 30,000 pound bunker bluster that they say, Jay, and it burrows deep underground before detonation. So your underground facility, Israel had, when the Israeli strikes happened, they just covered the upper part, but we know Iran has gone deep down underground to have these facilities there. And then the second was on the Natanz enrichment facility. So, Jay, this was the largest B2 operational strike since, and the second longest after the 9/11 when they flew to Afghanistan. So, Jay, this only point was that Iran had taken the warning of the US very seriously. And there is a satellite image of several trucks which have been lining up the Fordo enrichment plant. And whether they have taken that out to a safer place is the question that really is being probed right now. Because the IAEA, that is the International Atomic Energy, this has said that Iran has 400 kilograms, enough to make 9 nuclear bombs. So, Jay, where is that uranium? Has it been destroyed? Because if it was to have been destroyed, there would have been immediate fallout of radioactive material. That has not come into the picture. So let's see how it happens.
There's some issues that keep popping up. The administration was not unified in its reporting on whether the the Fordo plant had been destroyed. And
Hmm.
most recently, the New York Times reported that they had somehow obtained possession of a classified memo indicating that although these bombs, and that was a primary target, right? Although these bombs had destroyed the access way to the centrifuge halls, which were a few hundred feet down below the surface, they didn't actually destroy the centrifuge halls.
Hmm.
And the report was that, in fact, American intelligence, such as it is, I mean, we can't have a whole lot of confidence when we get reports about American intelligence. But they had concluded that uh, Iran was not years away from renewing its efforts, or even months away. It was pretty easy for Iran to start up again, maybe even weeks or months away from now. That's one interesting report, and the administration hasn't really commented on that yet. It was not in the Washington Post, but it was in the New York Times. The other thing that I would mention is that the Phalans, what's the name of that third, the Phalans?
Natanz and
Natanz,
Isfahan.
yeah. That Natanz was where the radioactive material, the refined radioactive material, was being kept, and it was kept in these scuba tank size
Mm.
containers, so it was easy to move. And I think the Iranian government, and of course you have credibility problems with them too, said that they did have the time and opportunity to move it out of Natanz, and so it is safe. So those two reports really put in question whether the United States did destroy as Trump said, did destroy the nuclear program. It sounds doubtful that Trump destroyed the nuclear program. But we'll see. I don't know if there's a way to validate that without having some discussions, like the non-proliferation discussions they had way back when, and that's not going to come real soon. So if my point is that if Iran has the wherewithal, either the centrifuge halls in one place or another, which might include Fordo, and if it has those tanks of radioactive materials, then they could start up again fairly
Yeah.
fairly quickly, and they're committed. This administration, this regime in Iran is committed, and the Iranian people are behind that for the most part. I shouldn't say for the most part, but a good percentage of them are. They had protests and street scenes over the weekend, which indicated that there were hundreds of thousands of Iranians who supported the theocracy and its program. So, not clear what has been achieved here. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, Jay. See, what you speak is so right because the goals itself were first to change the regime, and second was to stop. First was to stop the nuclear weapon from being made, and second was to change the regime. None of those two goals have exactly been achieved, right? And the response of the Iranian authorities, like you said, uh, is that they might get the hands on a nuclear weapon months from now when they restart. They rejuvenate immediately because they've got the money. They are the largest oil producers in the world. And see, their response to America doing the V 2 bomber operation was that Iran's parliament decided to close the Strait of Hormuz, which controls around 20% of the world's oil supply. And the second one was the Operation Bashar al Fateh, that is, Annunciation of Victory, by which they attacked the Qatar air base with a missile, Al Udeid Air Base in Doha, Qatar. So, and they declared that any aggression would lead to acceleration in the collapse of the US military pillars. And they have said that they want the realization of the common aspiration of the Islamic Ummah and the freedom loving nation, eradicating the cancerous tumor of Zion. So they don't let go of the agenda. We might step back from our agenda, but for them, it is a single target, Jay. They have two slogans which they chant now. Like you said, the people came out on the streets and they chanted. They chant that death to America, death to Israel. They don't change that. They will never change that, and they work towards it. So that blind faith in destroying something is very focused. They have blinders on them, and so being lethargic or being a little bit humane in dealing with this regime and their intentions is just going to be uh, a big mistake for the future, Jay. Because right now, Israel and US are in a strong position. It has to strike when the iron is hot. That is the point, Jay.
Ceasefire may or may not work. Ceasefires in the Middle East don't usually work. They, give it a few hours and we're back to where we were. But let me ask you your thoughts about. I know this is a show all in itself about the decision process that Trump went through, and his decision to actually bomb, these three plants. And what I find interesting, by the way, is you talk about the bunker buster and the B-2, which had some experience flying around. The B-2 may have been somewhat experienced, but not the bunker buster. I don't think they ever blew one up. So this is the first time, and all the rhetoric about how it was going to blow up the whole mountain and dig up 600 feet of soil and rock and whatnot.
Mm.
That was a guess. That was a hope. That was an aspiration. In fact, I don't think the bunker buster worked the way they thought it was going to work. So the, Iran's move on putting it way underground, good move. The U.S. Reliance on the bunker buster, maybe not so good. And if this happens again, and it is likely to happen again, the Iranians will build something way down below where we can't reach it by bombs. At the end of the day, it may be that the only way to stop this is by boots on the ground. This notion of an automated war has not really proved true in this case. It hasn't really worked. But let's talk about Trump's statement that there was, in fact, a ceasefire. I thought that was amusing. He comes up and says, "Oh yeah, there's a ceasefire for sure between Israel and Iran," and then Israel doesn't say anything, and Iran says there's no ceasefire. And then shortly thereafter, a few hours later, Iran said something like, "Well, if you don't shoot at us, we won't shoot at you." So it's kind of a de facto ceasefire, and Israel was went along with that. So what you had was Trump announces falsely that there was a ceasefire, and both of the parties that he mentioned come around. I mean, I don't know if that was brilliant or luck or just bullying everybody. My guess is that because he said that, Israel had no choice. Israel has to stay close to him because he, quote, did them a big favor. And so they would have to go along with his, his untrue statement of a ceasefire. Iran probably did the right thing in terms of, creating this de facto ceasefire. Right after they had, sent missiles into Qatar, our base in Qatar. But luckily, nobody was hurt. So the question I put to you is this over or not?
Jay, see, when he said congratulations on the it was like telling a dead person, "Oh, you're dead." Okay, but he would have died with the disease that he had anyway. So that is good news. That's congratulations. So it didn't make any sense when he said congratulations to the ceasefire and bravery of the Iranian people and the Israeli people. I think the whole world was in a state of confusion, and Iran is a non-English speaking state, so till it trickled down to the bottom, missiles had already been fired up to Israel. And so when the missiles reached, they were in the war zone. Nobody knew that Trump is going to wake up and say ceasefire. But with this ceasefire, like you said, Israel had to accept it. And he cleverly put the US out of the equation. by saying that they would be the monitors of the ceasefire and they were out of the direct zone. Otherwise, it would have been an Iran US confrontation, and he avoided that. So that was a tactical move. But Jay, he confuses everyone. Like nobody knows what is going to be the next step. And we used to say that, remember why he met the Syrian um, Al Qaeda leader. But then today, Iran was isolated. Did not, otherwise, it would have had Syria, Lebanon with it, allies with it, who would have fought in this war directly with Israel and America. It has been a very comprehensive war strategy that has come up with Israel and the US, where they have destroyed or made wear and tear to the axis of resistance and cornered Iran and left the best for last. But Iran is what do you say, a sore loser. They will wait and they will come back stronger because that will be their, like the plane is always the last missile of the pilot. So whether or not they destroy themselves, they will destroy Israel. So Iran should not be left. Donald Trump should not take this. He should finish it to the end because, Jay, we don't have the support of the Iranian people. Really, it was a big factor that everybody was counting on, that with the support of the outside aggression, we would have had the domestic support and the regime would change. But you saw people on the streets with that Khamenei. So it was totally shocking for everybody. All the critics or all the observers would have been shocked with this kind of support that Khamenei got.
At first I thought the people on the street must be motivated by the Iranian government. That there were some of those demonstrators were just plants of the Iranian government, but there were so many of them, Roopmati. There
Yeah,
were
yeah.
thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of people filling the streets of Tehran. So you knew it had to be an authentic demonstration from the
Mm,
people, by the people. This is the way they feel. The other thing about it is, is this really over? I mean, Trump's efforts. Let me remind everyone: Trump's efforts at renegotiating that non-proliferation agreement have been singularly unsuccessful. It was a dishwater. He never got to first base on that. And now he's gotten himself into a situation. I don't, you were saying he should finish the job, and I don't think he can finish the job
yeah.
because he's made himself the peacemaker, and he's had plenty of criticism from everywhere in the world
Mm,
about this attack, which I find interesting because remember, it was only like 3 weeks ago that he attacked Yemen. Remember that? So
yes.
but nobody complained about that. They complained about this, and all these complaints, are hard on our reputation. And maybe should be, but at the end of the day, he can't turn around now and resume his attacks. He's painted himself into a strategical corner, a diplomatic corner. He cannot do that. And really, the question is whether it's over for Iran. Iran will slowball him on any negotiations. They'll make him jump and sing and dance, and he'll never get to first base again, my view. And furthermore, they will build bombs and they will threaten everyone, and the government, will stay in place. The regime will stay in place. There'll be no surrender. Already, they have claimed that they won the war. They were already. Everybody wins. I love wars where everybody wins, except somebody isn't telling the truth. So then you have these, waking the sleeping lion sort of thing. If they were angry at the U.S. before, boy, they're angry now. And those threats about retaliation against American assets in the Middle East and, American institutions in the U.S., those are still hanging out there. I don't think that's going to go away. That could happen anytime. And Trump can stamp his feet, but it's still possible that they could do cyber terrorism on us. They could do old-fashioned 9/11 type of, terrorism on the U.S. And he may or may not be able to cope with that. But remember, his Department of Defense is incompetent. His, his intelligence apparatus is incompetent. So I don't know if they and the guy who runs counterterrorism for Homeland Security is 22 years old, and I think he used to work in a laundromat. I'm not kidding you. And so he is completely incompetent to run counterterrorism in the U.S. Iran knows this as well as you and I, and so I think that it's not over in terms of Iran's retaliation against the U.S. Your thoughts?
Yeah, Jay. See, during this conflict, we saw that there were Chinese cargo planes entering Iranian space, dropping the supplies and moving out. So China did not hesitate to take a direct stand against the U.S. That U.S. has to keep in mind. Second, that they went to Putin the day before they did the Bashar al-Fateh, the strike on the U.S. Qatar base. So you give a twerk of confidence to Putin also, that after they meet Putin, the US steps back and wants a ceasefire. Iran feels we struck one of their bases and they've come down to a ceasefire. So this kind of a small level of confidence take works a long way for these rogue nations, because they start building up things in their mind. They feel that they can destroy. And the Iranian sleeper cells in on American soil itself is the one of the biggest threats that we feel, because a terrorist attack does not require many logistics except for a human mind and a little bit of ammunition. So sleeper cells can be activated all throughout America. American tourists abroad, hostages, all these things come into place. And they rogue nations work in ways. They will not take the direct route. The B-2 bombers went straight up with, if they would have been detected by the radars, there would have been a direct confrontation. But this terrorism, which strikes always, is through undetected means in the civilians. And observe in this conflict, Jay, when Israel was targeting just the nuclear facilities, Iran was busy bombing civilian spots, the stock exchange, everything. So they have no morals in fighting. There is absolutely no rules of warfare that they follow. And that becomes the problem, because one side following and one side not following gives a tactical advantage to the rogue nation.
It teaches us so much. I don't feel that this was a winning operation. I don't think it was a winning decision, and I'm really not at all sure that Trump's, taco move, backing off and suggesting a ceasefire that actually didn't exist at the time he suggested it. Very cute. But all things considered, I'm not sure that we achieved anything. But we sure have learned, or should have learned, a bunch of things. One is, you want to have competent DoD people, you want to have competent intelligence people. We don't have that. You want to have consistency in the public statements you make and the rhetoric you use. You don't want to awake sleeping lions the way we have, and you want to have a propaganda, a campaign going at the same time. I don't think his propaganda campaign was very effective. And the world already distrusts him and laughs at him. And so when you see his moves and you're sitting in Beijing or in Moscow, you see his, or in Europe, all through Europe, you see his moves, then you have less confidence in him going forward, less confidence. And that means less confidence in the US. And so, if you ask me, and I'm interested in your thought about this, if you ask me how this has changed things, what kind of benefit it has been to the United States, I don't find a benefit. I'm sorry. I would have supported the destruction of the nuclear facility, but I don't think it really worked out. We didn't really get the Fordo plant, and I don't think we really got the uranium either. We didn't really stop them. Worse, we got a black eye in world opinion.
Hmm?
So that's how it's changed things. We look worse now. Trump looks worse, and therefore the U.S. looks worse. And furthermore, the United States is divided on this issue too. If you stop two people in the street, you'll get two opinions, or maybe three. And so, this is another point of divisiveness. If he intended this as a distraction from his immigration, policy, may I say, ridiculous immigration policy, it was, but only for a few days. Now he's back where he was, and people are even more divided about him. He stands a good chance of losing in any election. But the fact is, he hasn't really done any good for the country, the people, or for world opinion. Your thoughts?
Yeah, Jay, the finesse that was at the start of this operation is missing at the end of it. Because starting it was clear cut two rules, that two aims and objectives that we have to achieve: nuclear weapons and regime change. None of them have been done. The mega idea, make Iran great again. Nothing. We had a war which was being dictated by Trump on social media. He was saying evacuate Tehran, and Tehran used to be filled. The streets used to be filled of them running out. He said ceasefire, ceasefire. But where is the 400 kg of enriched 60% enriched uranium? That is the biggest question that Israel has to follow. And secondly, Jay, regime change was thrown out of the window in such a high fashion way that it was shocking also. And we need boots on the ground for regime change, and we couldn't have that in this kind of Iran, because this regime, Jay, whatever, however dissatisfied the people are with them, they keep the population well. They have good gas prices, they have good employment, they have agricultural sources, they have what do you say, domestically they are kept very satisfied. So none of them came to support Israel and the US like they would. Bangladesh changed in matter of 14, 15 hours, the regime, because the people were dissatisfied. Here it was difficult for everybody to get in. And American opinion, Jay, will be divided because this was a war which did not involve American casualties or damage. It was just about help Israel. And public opinion is short. They are trying. They are not that much. The vigor of supporting Israel has died down. It is just like it's a routine war going on, like the Ukraine-Russia war going on. Israel is fighting against everybody, but what is happening actually is not felt by the public here. Israel is really fighting a war of existence. That importance, that intensity is not felt by the people. It's like a routine that they have accepted it. And America has gone and helped. Nothing else other than that. But it's a big thing that's happened this time.
For the first time in my recollection, and I mean going way back, Israel
Yeah.
had taken hits in its major cities in Haifa and Tel Aviv, and
Yes.
elsewhere around Israel. And hospitals have been destroyed, people have been killed. You can imagine how they feel, how the Israelis feel. They were removed and remote from October 7th, most of them, and they have been removed and remote from the IDF efforts in Gaza and Lebanon. But now this strikes home, and what it tells them, and what it should tell us, and the nation of Israel in general, is that they're vulnerable. If somebody
Yeah.
with missiles far away can pulverize their cities and institutions and hurt and kill them in mass in residential areas, this is new. And
Hmm.
that's why that leads me to my next question: is how did Israel really do on this? They killed a lot of military people, maybe some political leaders, and some infrastructure like missile launchers and the like. But did they really win? At the end of the day, Iran's really angry at them, and Iran knows more about how to do destructive things against Israel. They have shown they have the ability and the will and the ammunition, whether from China or Russia, what have you, to actually damage Israel. And that's not a win for Israel, for Iran to find out.
Yeah, Jay, see, if Israel would be fighting this as the first war, it's been fighting for over 2 years. One war takes you back 30, 40 years. Israel has been fighting on 7, 8 fronts for 2 years, and it is kind of exhausted. And Iran got this confidence that, like you said, that missiles could be going inside. So now the motivation to build a nuclear bomb and a one strike destruction that they have, the aim, that becomes stronger for them. They are now going to, not only them, the other Muslim countries who are enemies of Israel are going to be motivated by this. For them, it's they dig up victories and losses. You know what I mean? And we try to find losses in our victories. So they are that kind of optimistic kind of characters. Jay, even if it destroys one person, one suicide bomber, they will feel okay, but they don't feel what their own person has gone. So, Jay, Israel uh, will have to take care that the Iron Dome was just enough to stop the drone attacks or small missiles of the Hezbollah, the Hamas. But we are dealing with ballistic missiles, and they took out all the big weapons, the Fateh and all. So to tackle that, the David Sling and the Arrow 2 and 3 were insufficient. And God forbid, if there was no America supporting Israel, Israel would not have existed. So, Jay, it took a very long time to convince people of the world that there has been a terrorist attack in Israel. People were not vocal about supporting the terrorist attack in Israel. So, in general, people don't care what happens. Even if you're destroyed, you have to say that, it, it's in trouble, there's trouble there. People will not believe you or not come to help you. So that's the case with Israel has to advocate its position, and in doing that, it's another exhaustive factor for Israel. And this, to show that how they are fighting these perpetual enemies, has been a big task for Israel. And Iran is the mother of all these enemy, proxies. So to come head on with with Iran, was a first for Israel, a first head on confrontation.
If you attack Iran,
Mm.
then Iran can retaliate against you, and then you can retaliate against Iran. It's nation versus nation. Okay.
Yeah.
But if Iran harbors some kind of deep seated animosity and wants to retaliate, not as a nation, but through proxies,
Ah.
it can do that again. It can reconstitute Hezbollah. It can do something in the West Bank. It can do something around Gaza and anywhere else. And the problem is that Trump can say, if you do that, we're going to get you. But you can't necessarily um, hold Iran responsible for the work of these terror organizations. You can say, oh, yeah, we know our intelligence sources, such as they are, tells us, that Iran is really responsible. But if it looks like lone wolf, if it
Ah.
looks like, terror groups that may or may not be working at the behest of Iran, it's very hard for the United States to mount a retaliatory campaign. They may not be able to mount the public opinion, the popular support for another attack on Iran. And Iran knows that as well as you and I do.
Ah.
So Iran's move now is not to retaliate as a nation state, is to retaliate the way it was operating before through terror cells. And it's so easy to do that without being responsible, with deniability.
Yeah, Jay, this is exactly what is the point. That right now we have Iran by the neck. So this time, if you let them go, they will come back. They will come back stronger. They will come back more prepared. And Israel won when it did not let Hamas regroup. Israel won when it did not give back Gaza into the hands of the PLA. That is the point. When you are at the top, you have to strike when the iron is hot. And we could never bring in Iran into a direct confrontation. They always avoid this. Like you rightly said, they use proxies and they wriggle their way out of every situation. You could never say Iran did this. Oh no, we did not do. Hezbollah did it. Hamas did it. Houthi did it. So this was the time when it was one-on-one. You have to grab them, and you have to finish off their resources to such a way that there is a definitive end to their rogueness. Keep them to such an extent. See, the Taliban is busy now trying. How much ever we criticize the mm, operations in Afghanistan, today Taliban is busy thinking about domestic needs of the basic domestic needs. So food, water, shelter is the issue there, not how to strike another country. That should have been the case done with Iran, that to destroy them in such a way that they would not go for nuclear enrichment rather than go for building their own infrastructure again. They're oil producing. They're the largest producers of oil in the country. They have lots of money, Jay. No reconstruction money worry or anything. They have Russia and China helping them directly. So, and when Russia would have never been busy in a Ukraine war. So, and China is too weak by tariff to come into this picture and direct. This was the right time for do all done to win kind of situation. Jay. Really, you're right about this.
Well, I have two hypotheticals I want to pose to you
Uh,
before we close. Just suppose the U.S. had not gone into this war. It was really a surprise. My conclusion when he said 2 weeks back when, it seems like an age ago, doesn't it?
mm,
Was that he wasn't going to do it at all. And in retrospect, that would have been a better move for the United States. But query, body, would it have been a better move for Israel? Would Israel have come out better if the United States had not entered the war?
no, Jay. You need an ally in the Middle East because you see uh, there are rules of war which these people don't follow. They're rogue nations and they attack a lot. And Israel is really exhausted after 2 years of continuous fighting, Jay. It is fighting outfits which are uh, tunnel rats. They are hidden rats. They are, what do you say? They stab you in the back. It's all kind of unethical means of warfare that they use. And to fight that requires an alert mind 24/7. You have a domestic population which is scared, which criticizes, which, you don't have that support. You don't have regular life going on. You have the economy which is falling. So all these factors, Israel is a small nation but it's a blessed nation, so it continues. Otherwise, it would have been destroyed way long back because the motivation and the intentions to kill are many, but the will to survive for Israel is just one, and it's working because uh, there is justice somewhere, there is karma somewhere that helps it go on in spite of all this. And America is the one which stands strong because if you don't help Israel, the next target is going to be you. It is dead to Israel, dead to America. The slogan is together. So if you help your friend, that friend will also help you. It's like that.
Now, you remind me of one commentator who said that Israel had two principal points. One is
Mhm.
never again, which comes out of the Holocaust. We aren't going to let the Holocaust take place again now.
Mm.
And the second point was this comes out of Munich and Chamberlain, no appeasement.
Yes.
And the US has been appeasing. In fact, Western Europe has been appeasing for a long time. If we just talk to them, we can settle them down, we can make peace, it'll be all right. But that really hasn't worked. Okay, I have one last question for you. This is the most difficult question of all, and it wraps around everything we have discussed today and before.
Uh,
Where's this going, Roopmati? If I look down the road, what is likely to happen? I will not hold you to your answer, but I would be very interested in your current thinking about where we're going.
Jay, we are going towards a good state of justice because after seeing the axis of resistance being destroyed step by step, I have confidence in the Israeli tactic that they prioritize their enemy. It is one enemy at one time. You try to destroy Israel, Israel will keep quiet, but it will prioritize its enemy and take one by one. And it is belief in self that which keeps Israel going. And the concept that you said, never again, is that never again we'll let it happen. So we have to strike with force. And like you see, Netanyahu is a soldier. He leads from the front. Like that, each Israeli is a soldier. And one Israeli is enough to destroy the evil motivations of 100 Iranians. Why? Because they just have this aim of destroying, but they don't have, when you have the notion of destroying someone, you may not succeed. But when you have the notion of thinking about yourself, protecting yourself, you work better. The destroying will always be diversified.
I saw an interview of a guy who worked for Mossad
Mm,
for a career, and he was a very diminutive guy. If you saw
mm,
him on the street, you wouldn't think anything of it. I mean, he just
yeah.
looked like any passerby, and yet he had been involved in all of these incredible Mossad operations. And the interviewer managed to get him to talk about these operations. And what you got out of this was this guy, this diminutive guy, was so clever. And Mossad was so clever, always creative, out of the box, coming up with solutions that nobody anticipated. And when I think of that, and I think of this guy and the clever approach that Mossad has taken and Israel has taken, that encourages me. That
Yes.
gives me hope and inspiration. Anyway, we'll have to leave it there, Roopmati. This has been a very interesting discussion. We live in interesting times, such as the
Yes.
Chinese interesting times. Thank you so much, Dr. Roopmati Khandekar. I'm Jay Fidell, host of Global Connections. We've been discussing Operation Midnight Hammer, the U.S. strike on Iran, and what follows. Thanks to our viewers for watching. We'll see you again soon for the next one. Aloha. Aloha, Roopmati.
Hello, Ajay. Thank you so much for having me.